From Dana White helping out in expediting the process, to the United States Anti-Doping Agency confirming that the Notorious is back, here's everything you need to know about Conor McGregor entering the testing pool. The boss finally had to step in to make things happen for the Notorious. While talking at the press conference after UFC Vegas 73, Dana announced the return of the promotion's poster boy. He also said that there's going to be an official announcement sometime during the airing of the 31st season of The Ultimate Fighter. You see, guys, Conor will be starring opposite Michael Chandler on the show as a coach, and as is tradition, the two coaches will fight each other. Now, usually this happens at the very end of the show, but because of McGregor's issues, the fight will be moved back a little. Dana confirmed that the fight is going to happen, but for that, the Notorious must first get back into the United States Anti-Doping Agency testing pool. The UFC head honcho also revealed that Conor was filling out the paperwork for the time being, and Dana couldn't say exactly when he'll be done with that, cause that's really not his business. So all he can say is that everything's in motion and that Mystic Mac's gonna be back soon. The boss also added that the UFC plans to have two massive fights at the end of the year. The first one's gonna be in Madison Square Garden, New York, sometime in November 2023. And the final fight will be in T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas in December 2023. Rumors are that Jon Jones is going to appear against Stipe Miocic in his hometown in MSG, and the Notorious will mark his return against Chandler in Vegas. Conor's expected to be headlining that event for sure, because it'd fall perfectly with the 6 months he has to spend in the United States Anti-Doping Agency pool. That's just one of the rules that the Anti-Doping Agency needs him to follow, and this is the same for every retired fighter looking to return to the octagon. There was a lot of back and forth between the United States Anti-Doping Agency and McGregor, because the Notorious wanted to be granted an exemption from this particular rule and expected that he'd be allowed to fight after he can submit only 2 negative drug tests. The United States Anti-Doping Agency wasn't going to play ball this time, and they wanted the Irishman to stick to the rules. Of course, the UFC could have granted him an exemption and asked USADA to overlook the 6-month rule, but Dana thought better of it. He allowed this to happen with Brock Lesnar in the past, and it just kinda blew up in his face. The Beast Incarnate was found to have banned substances in his body before and after the fight. Conor obviously wouldn't be that stupid, and probably would have gotten his own doctors to clear him before submitting samples to USADA, but Dana didn't really want to risk it, and I don't blame him for that, because no one knows what kind of secret juice Mystic Mac was on. After he broke his leg in half fighting Dustin Poirier in 2021, no one really knew when the Notorious is going to come back. At first, people even thought that his career was over, because it's really difficult to recover from a horrible injury like the one he suffered. In the past, fighters like Anderson Silva underwent something similar, and I'm sure you guys remember how they were never the same. Conor then started appearing on social media a year later, all jacked up. People obviously started questioning how he gained so much muscle mass in such a short duration of time, especially when he was supposed to be recovering. Steroid use was something that everyone was accusing Conor of, and it's more likely to be the case than not. You see, there are some drugs that help in increasing bone density in a person, but as a side effect, they also help fighters bulk up. Many believe this was what Conor did, because he needed to ensure that his bones were stronger after an injury like the one that he suffered, and that he could recover properly. McGregor never accepted that he took anything like that to help him heal, and he won't ever admit it either, but every expert who saw him confirmed that he was on some of that good stuff. Anyway, the Irishman probably wants all of that stuff to be left in his rearview mirror. He's ready to return to USADA's fold now. Even before the confirmation that things are finally moving forward, Conor dropped a couple of cryptic messages on his Twitter, which hinted at his eventual return to the USADA pool. He posted a series of photos of himself in a swimming pool, and he kept saying how good it felt to be back in the pool. When a fan told the Irishman that he wanted to see McGregor in it, the former champ responded by saying that he's been in the pool for some time now. As if these hints weren't big enough for the fans, Conor also told them to stay ready for the date. On top of that, the Notorious had been posting shirtless photos of himself, like he always does. But this time it's a little different, cause Mystic Mac has started to trim down a little, it seems. Don't get me wrong here, guys, he's still jacked, but he's cutting it down a little and trying to get back in fighting shape once again. I doubt that we'll see him as a lightweight right now, but you can safely assume that the Irishman would be looking to fight as a 170-pounder. If that's not enough proof of his return for you, then the Irishman confirmed it himself in May 2023. He was asked by a reporter if June 1st is the date he'll be back in USADA's pool, and Conor responded that it's done now. He will be fighting on the scheduled date. McGregor also said that he's gearing up ready to go, and by the time the show, The Ultimate Fighter, is done airing, the date will be confirmed along with the venue. Coming from the man himself, that's pretty big, cause people didn't really know what to expect, and many even thought that the Notorious was done with MMA for good. You can't really blame the fans for thinking that. He wasn't exactly showing up as a model athlete, and was making appearances at all major combat sports events, chugging at a bottle of his proper 12 whiskey and having a good time without a care in the world about his UFC career. And he'd been picking fights with USADA as well. You guys know how McGregor's not really afraid of sticking it to the authorities. As I mentioned, the Irishman has been questioned on his legitimacy as a natural fighter, and that was kind of expected given those gains. The general consensus was that he must have taken something to achieve that, but obviously Conor's no fool. He never accepted any of that. In fact, he decided to take the fight to the United States Anti-Doping Agency and called them out for trying to make him their scapegoat. The truth is that the former UFC double champ has never failed any of his drug tests, and he decided to remind the Anti-Doping Agency of that fact. There must have been something else going on behind the scenes as well, because Conor refused to re-enter the testing program initially, even if it meant that his showdown against Michael Chandler was delayed. This particular case got a whole lot of attention largely due to McGregor's star power, but in all fairness, the United States Anti-Doping Agency were also only trying to do their job. They want to make sure that all athletes have a level playing field, and they reiterated that message when they confirmed McGregor's return to the pool. That's right, guys! The Notorious is officially back in the fold, and USADA has also confirmed that he's going to re-enter the testing pool soon enough. Throughout this whole situation, the Anti-Doping Agency has provided public statements to ensure that the Irishman wasn't being given any undue favors. Conor's latest claims about his return to the pool align perfectly with USADA's announcement. They released a statement that said that they've been in direct contact with Mystic Mac, and that his paperwork is expected to be submitted to them soon. USADA also repeated that they stand by the rule, which requires retired athletes to spend a minimum of 6 months in the pool before they can be allowed to compete professionally. It looks like Uncle Dana didn't step in with an exemption for his poster boy, and so Conor will have to do his time in the testing pool before being allowed to step back inside the UFC octagon. USADA also added that, during this time period, the Irishman will be required to provide at least 2 negative samples. It looks like everything is on track for the Notorious to make his long-awaited comeback now. I just hope that he makes it worth it. So, from USADA confirming that the Notorious is back, to Dana White helping out in expediting the process, this was everything you need to know about Conor McGregor entering the testing pool.